Welcome to the International Writer Stage. I am Anna Fock, talking to Nora Ikstena from Latvia. So the English title is Soviet Milk, right?
Right, yeah.
Mother's milk in Swedish. She says it herself, and in almost every review I've read and on the back of the book, they say that the mother has no maternal feelings for her daughter. It made me want to defend her from all the critics. And do you think that she lacks maternal feelings for the daughter?
First of all, I'm so delighted and so happy to have this not direct, but this Zoom conversation with Sweden, because my book came out in a very hard times during first COVID-19 wave in Sweden, and it is a very special translation for me because the translator is Joris Granbergs, and he died during he was translating the novel. And he was very best friend of mine. So, and it's a very, very kind of touchy thing that we start this conversation. I am in Norway, you are in Sweden, but still. But you asked about this title first. So it came like this at 1918, when Latvia was together with Estonia and Lithuania, the main country in London Book Fair, which was historically. Then my English publisher was preparing, Perini Press was preparing the book for the book fair. And we discussed a lot about the title. And she said that the most difficult thing is to enter British market with a book from absolutely, for British people, unknown literature and unknown country. And she convinced me to change the title for British market to Soviet Milk. And actually, for the first time, I was so upset and so exhausted. But then when I thought it over, I thought that actually it is symbolically, because it's not only that mother's milk, it's also this lost milk of our homeland and country. And I agreed to her. And now when in interviews, people asking me, why did you do that? I said that I sacrificed the title of my book to British market, because after my book, 45 translations of Latvian contemporary literature came out in English translation. And I think that it's not a big sacrifice. And your other question was about mother. And you said that you kind of want to defend her because she has these feelings. But I think that in the deepest sense, this is a book about a big, big love between mother and daughter. Of course, the mother is not in a way how we used to understand mother's feelings or mother's love. But I think the thing is that the kind of daughter is becoming the mother of her mother. And it is a big love, which is kind of, helping mother to be alive and helping mother to return to this feeling of life, even if the end is not so happy.
Yes, she actually reminds me of my own mother, who died when I was a young child, and this notion of motherhood as if we think of this mother as a mother who doesn't feel like one, it makes me feel think a lot about my own motherhood, actually. But she also...
that's what I now, the novel came out in original 2015. And can you imagine all these 5 years having each translation in each country, starting with the the post-Soviet countries and Scandinavia and Japan and Arabic and everything. So it's the same story. There are so many mother-daughter stories in this world, and when I was writing it, it was local, kind of personal story for me, and I didn't expect that the story will be so universal. But I think it's the same story. I just honestly wanted to tell my story.
Yes. So let's go back to the milk, because that was, of course, another milk in itself is a very symbolic thing.
I think this milk thing is very complex in a book, but I didn't thought about it when I was writing. It was more like my childhood trauma, because I didn't know that in my childhood I and still I have an allergy towards milk, but I didn't know that. And then I just, I was struggling with this obligatory milk at school when I was a kid. And then when I was writing the novel, all the layers, all the metaphors, like suddenly, came into my mind, because it says so many layers of the metaphor of milk. In Latvian folklore, we have this absolutely beautiful saying that the water is warm like milk when you are swimming, and then we have the Milky Way in the sky, and then if we want to describe the most beautiful feelings, like paradise feelings, we are saying that we are in milky rivers. And then I just, it was not like I was doing it for purpose, but this milk fled in. So and it was surprisingly for myself too, that being just a kind of an episode in my life, it turned to be a big metaphor in my novel. And of course, I think that this is a liquid of life. Mother's milk, it's a liquid of life. And I think what the daughter is struggling in novels, that she never got that, but still she's willing to go through and willing to help her mother. And even if she missed the breast milk in her childhood. And then, so one of the versions of English title was chamomile, because she was, the daughter was drinking chamomile tea as a baby instead of mother's milk. But I think it just all came together. And sometimes when you are writing, you are not expecting what will happen. And I didn't expect what will happen.
Yes, I also felt that the mother has, she may not be the conventional mother in some people's minds, I guess, but she has this tremendous respect for motherhood as a thing.
In a very understandable situation that sometimes in this world, the saints and the predictors of our destiny, they can help others, but they cannot help themselves. And I think that is absolutely the same thing what is happening with Mother in this novel, that she is so kind of so devoted to what she's doing. She wants to save, she wants to help women to get children, and she's protecting Serafima, and she's so intellectually clever. She's reading the books which are not, usual books for women in Soviet time to read. And I think also all around the world, if you are having the small baby. But her biggest struggle is to have her own motherhood feelings towards her daughter, and I think that makes her so unusual. But in this world, I think we are used to have this conventional stories, or we are used to have labels how it should be. But when you are starting to talk about people's life, it's not so easy. It's complicated. It's very it's not always going this right way how it should be. Yeah, and I think that the force is to overcome it and to understand that in this difference, in this maybe not so perfect, not so so conventional life, we also find love and devotion and trust and everything. It's just another way. So I was always in my books. I wanted to describe the other ways of thinking, other ways of feeling this world, because we are so different and so complex. We are not like machines, and we are not even if we look more or less common. So we are so different by our souls, by our traditions, by our cultures, by our feelings, and everything what's happening in life with us.
And as much as I would have loved to see Mother experience this freedom, I got the feeling that she sacrificed her chance at freedom and seeing her country being free for her daughter. It's of course it's sad that she doesn't join the Baltic chain, for example, but all of that happens during the same time as the daughter is growing up and waking up when she finds out that there's a flag she didn't even know about, and she has this teacher, and my reaction was my reaction was that maybe daughter was never completely free when because she was always worried about Mother, what she would do if she would be alive when she came back from school. And do you think Mother freed her by not going out there?
Maybe it's a bit personal, but the story is very much autobiographical, and I see that I feel that my mother kind of sacrificed half of her life to me. So, and I don't have like any regrets that what I did for her. So it's not like you are doing something and you are getting back. It's not the right way of thinking. But when I see it back, I see that as a child personally, and of course it shows in a novel. I didn't think about that I'm sacrificing something. So I was just taking care of my mom, and now when it starts with the story, I'm feeling that she's kind of giving half a life back to me. So and then it's and in this novel it shows, but it shows also this very big love which exists in between them. Nevertheless, they don't understand each other, and daughter thinks that it's not the right way because everybody around is living kind of like the more or less perfect life possible under Soviet system, and she sees that family they are living another kind of life, but still it's their own story, and they are living it through.
Yeah, I never got the impression in the novel that the daughter felt that she wasn't free. She was of course worried, but maybe the mother had this feeling that she was holding her daughter back. I don't know, but
yeah, I think so. And also it's complex because she, as a professional, as a very brilliant doctor, she's feeling herself like trapped because of this, the Soviet rules and Soviet regime, not having the proper education, but she knows because of the relatives being exiled in free Western world, and that the books that she want to read, and she's not actually living in the reality. She in that particular reality, she is living in her own world. But I think that she, in a way, in a very difficult manner, but she teaches her daughter how to be really free, how to survive, and how to keep your freedom even under the such kind of regime or rules or everything. I think to learn freedom, it's always a very bitter thing. So it's not easy. Yeah.
It may be obvious, but I love this mother. Actually, and in all of her strange ways, she does have dignity the whole way.
Thank you. Thank you so much for saying that, because I think she's nevertheless that she's kind of refusing life. I think she's very strong because she knows her world. She knows her duties, and nevertheless that she cannot do it in a usual way. She has this force to give further to her daughter, and I think that's a main thing, because we know so many families and so many mother-daughter stories that there are it looks perfect by side, but there are no relationships, no kind of feelings in between. So that's not the case. So
this is not your first novel. Of course, you've been a professional writer for a long time. Do you have any thoughts on why this particular book became such a big breakthrough internationally?
I think I'm start to understand why it happened, because my first novel, Celebration of Life, I wrote when I was 28, and actually it is translated also into Swedish by Joris Kronberg's Livets Fest. And then I started, and I got the first copy of my first novel 2 days before my mom's funeral. And I think it was a turning point for me, being 28 years old, thinking that I will be back to this subject. I will be back to this theme. So while in between I was writing short stories and also a couple of novels and biographies and actually doing many kind of like in a Baltic region, quite a known books, but I think I was like preparing myself to this mother's milk, and when I see it back, I think that it was not possible for me to write it when I was 28. It was not possible to write it when I was even 38. So I needed to have this distance and to put together. And that the Jan Kross, the very famous Estonian writer, he said that the good prose, internationally acclaimed prose, you can start right when you are turning 50. I'm 51 now, so that's beginning. No, I don't want to refuse my. I think I've written a lot of books, and now I'm working on a new novel. But I just think that. But even if you have one book writing in such a small language as Latvian, which becomes so kind of universal for people, because I still remember during the London Book Fair 1918, I was interviewed in BBC Live television, which was absolutely unusual with my novel. And it was, I was feeling like, of course, like in an animation world. So I went to this interview, and then this newsman, he asked me, how do you feel yourself famous? I said, no, I just, I'm not feeling famous in that sense. My aim was to show that, that this is possible, to write universal novel in Latvian language. And when I was 25 or 6, I moved for 1 year to America. And then there was a proposal for me to stay in America and to start to write in English if I really want international success. So that was not an example for me. I returned to Latvia, and I'm still writing in Latvian, and I think that's how I feel myself, and that's what I want to do in this life, not to be famous.
This is so I'm as a writer working in a small country with very few readers, and I also let's make it simple and say I'm Estonian also, but it seems like a whole different thing. Is Latvia also a reading country and writing country?
Yeah, Latvia is absolutely reading and writing country. The reading traditions are so strong, starting with the first independency from 1918, and the book publishing, the ways how the books were published, so in a very nice way. And the Latvia is a reader's country, really. And now when it was this London Book Fair, we saw this enormous breakthrough of Latvian literature during London Book Fair, and now we see that the books are coming out in various countries. Of course, they stopped because of Chinese blog, but how I call this illness and mess in this world, but not really stopped, because when I see my story about Sweden, so it's amazing, because I understood that I cannot go for readings, I cannot participate, I cannot be in normal way how I presented my book in various countries before. But it went through. So I got so many reviews. I got book clubs and people who are like readers from Sweden who were writing me on Facebook and on Messenger and everywhere. And then I just saw that it is also kind of, sometimes you don't need this appearance of the author, but the book speaks by itself. And the sad thing that I couldn't manage to go to Stockholm for reading about 10 days ago, because as I said before reading, I really had the cold and cough, and it was not possible to go in that circumstances, because I wanted to visit the grave of Juris Kronbergs, my translator, because he's buried in Stockholm. And I wanted so much to have this, live talk to Swedish readers, because the attitude, the warm feelings, the understanding of my book, what I got during COVID from Swedish readers, it's amazing. So it helped me so so much because everything stopped, the festivals and things like, and I of course I didn't go to various readings all around the world which were planned, but especially this Swedish reader attitude helped me as an author, as a human being, so much during these times.
Yes, it's interesting how this virus has affected reading, because as you say, we as authors, we really need, that's a big thing for us, going to readings and so on. But that has been impossible. But at the same time, I think it seems like people have been reading much more, and I don't think I've ever seen so many online, for example, conversations about literature and books, and it's maybe it's just given people time to actually stay at home and sit down with a book.
Yeah, the first thing is that the time to read. The second thing is it's not. I don't think that it is escaping. It is just understanding slowly which are the real values of this life. Because when we see the mess what's going around in this world now, how can we survive? We survive. Because of our intuition, what to do, what not to do. Because if we are you need to follow the restrictions which are like medical restrictions, but you need to follow your intuition. Otherwise, you will be in a big trouble. And what is writing? Writing is intuition. You write because you have your own intuition, you have the way how you tell stories, and I think that's it's like a coming back to this good world of understanding, of thinking, because that's what we are losing. We are losing also time for thinking. But I don't agree that this is a good time for creativity. I don't agree, because if you are alive, if you see what's going around in the world, like just not sitting in your your room of your own, then and if you are thinking about what's going on, that it's not a time for the big creativity. So I started my new novel, and I wrote 1/3 of my new novel during first COVID wave, and then I stopped, and I was like in a feeling that why I need to write it, because the life itself is so, so many things are happening outside. Why I need to write about something inside? And then I came back realizing that my inside is my outside, and I'm just the one who will tell the one more story about how people felt during those times, and that's my duty to do. So I during first COVID, I was, I turned from writing to cooking. I cooked so many meals for people around my neighborhood who couldn't do that, and I think it's also a good thing sometimes. Turn from writing to some practical works.
So, are you back to writing again now, more than cooking?
Yes, I'm back to writing. I'm writing my novel, and I realized that nevertheless that we are talking about cooking, mushrooming, knitting, or whatever. So the most difficult time for me was because I couldn't write. And then I realized that, so that's how we are. We need to write. So that's my and probably yours duty in this world. So the people doing different things, but I was not feeling good. I felt like I'm wasting my time a bit. So nevertheless, that I like and I love life around me. I love everyday life, and I can do so all the things that people usually do. But yeah, we all have our duties, and my duty is writing, and I'm happy when I write.
So I think that sounds like a perfect ending. Librarians are waving. So,
okay. That was so nice to meet you and to talk to you.
I'm so happy to have kind of met you.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
okay.
And thank you so much for this book. I will look for the other one that's been translated.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Ciao.